We are going to move on to Mr. Ruppersberger of Maryland while Mr. Chris works out his technological issue. Mr. Ruppersberger, you are recognized for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney General, first, I respect your career. I know you have a very difficult job to do, and this is clearly an area where we as members of Congress need to work in a bipartisan way to deal with most of the issues that you've talked about. I'm going to go local. I'm from the Baltimore region. I was a former homegrown Baltimore, my family has. I was a former prosecutor. And one of the things you started out with today was that it's so important when we have high crime areas and that we need a teamwork. And that teamwork, it seems to me, works a lot. It worked when I was a prosecutor. Federal, state, and local working together. The task force seemed to work together. So that's where my questioning today. We have another round. I hope to get into cybersecurity. This past week, the Department of Justice released their 5-year review of the Baltimore consent decree, which said Baltimore had made significant achievements. I appreciate that, but I've heard from residents throughout the Baltimore area, my constituents have said they haven't seen any of the reforms called for in the consent decree. Can you talk a little bit about the next steps, like how the independent monitoring works and possible recommendations that might come out of it? Now, what can the department do to help with the cost of compliance with the consent decree? Baltimore has a lot going for it, but affording the cost of complying with the consent decree and fielding a better trained community listen approach police is costly, it is very costly. And I'd appreciate your thoughts on DOJ helping with the cost of compliance or alternate ways to help with the cost.
The Civil Rights Division is pleased with the progress so far with respect to the Baltimore consent decree. But as your constituents are pointing out, we still have considerable ways to go. In the announcement, I believe the Civil Rights Division identified a number of the areas that the independent monitor is continuing to work on. I don't have those in my head specifically with respect to Baltimore, but I can make sure our staff gets back to yours with respect to that. But this is a continuing set of improvements, and we're hopeful that will continue. With respect to the money for these kind of things, so take a step aside from Baltimore for just one moment. We've announced a series of different kinds of grant programs to help police departments with reform. These range from everything from technical assistance to assistance with respect to crises, to our intensive collaborative reform initiative, all of which provide money, and to the new laboratory that the Associate Attorney General just announced in California, and I believe the Baltimore Police Chief was there as well, with respect to money available for making the improvements that are generally required under decrees. So I can't give you a specific that is a Baltimore specific answer. But again, on this one, I could have our Office of Justice Program staff get in touch with your office.
That'd be great. And a lot of the issues, am I muted? Yeah. A lot of the issues too are not yours, but a major part of the crime has to be. And I think you talk about social issues, schools and young children, and the conspiracies that are going on a regular basis. That's in your field. So we'll work with you. I think we're moving ahead, and I think this concept works. The federal, state, and local working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruppersberger. And at this time, the chair is going to attempt to recognize Mr. Chris of Florida again, if he can get unmuted this time. Looks